have a guest in the studio. Michael is here, and we're going to talk about.
Get you guys like fine or anything? Yeah, probably that was pretty harsh. That was pretty harsh. Like I was pretty excited last night, and like after we were done like singing the national anthem and like waving our American flags and cheering and then I'm like, well, you need to look up the propositions, and I'm like, really? 53 to 44 or whatever when we looked it up. I'm like, seriously? Like that's maybe we keep that like I sort of feel like if you want to go all the way back to like the origins of marriage in our culture, then we're going to outlaw divorce because that used to be illegal. We're going to outlaw fornication because that used to be illegal too. Fornicating used to be a crime. It wasn't statutory rape. Two adults, two 40-year-olds one of them could go to jail for fornicating, right? That's the origins of our marriage laws. Fornication, divorce, and marriage between a man and woman. Let's go all the way back. Like, I don't think we should, but that's the next extension of it. So when people talk about, well, we're looking at the origins of marriage, it sounds like bullshit to me. Yeah. Because if you want to have a Catholic church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple that doesn't want to marry people of the same gender, hey, you know what? It's your system of belief. I totally understand. I may disagree. That's why I'm not in that religion. Mm-hmm. But the state of California has a different duty, right? It has the same duty that it had in 1972 when it outlawed miscegenation laws, which said people of different races couldn't get married. You can't have that kind of thing. Now we have a person who is a child of two people of different races as the president of the United States. That's pretty triumphant. Mm-hmm. To think on the same day as that, you'd have a law that amends the Constitution by popular vote.
We asked Michael Trigilio how it is possible that the large population could vote in President Obama and at the same time vote yes on Prop 8.
I do think that there is a point of view that I can understand, which is it's better to have Obama as the president and Prop 8 pass than the other way around. If McCain were the president and Prop 8 didn't pass, we'd still have McCain as the president. But with this case, we have Obama who can appoint Supreme Court justices. He can appoint federal judges all over across the country in the circuit courts and district courts. And there might be some remedy through the national system and through the Supreme Court that could come about from an Obama presidency and from the kinds of laws he might, not laws let's say, but judges he may appoint. So you might see more fairness. But, at the end of the day, I mean, marriage as an institution itself, I'm not really a big... I think it's kind of when you can get married after meeting someone for 6 minutes in Las Vegas and divorce them a week later, I'm not really convinced how sacred the act of marriage is itself. So I'm not a big proponent of marriage as a worldview, which gets to our Steven Spielberg question. The idea of sort of valorizing these worldviews like, marriage and authority and even though I'm very hopeful because of the new presidency, I do think that sort of just being patriotic for being patriotic's sake is a problem. I think it's not what our founding fathers and mothers and the people they owned, I don't think they believed in that. I think that there's an ideal that beyond just patriotism and beyond, I think love is more important than the tradition of marriage. I think that human rights are more important than the traditions of our democracy, or of our government anyway. And so I feel like when we talk about those Spielberg movies that I'm critical of, part of the reason I have a problem with them is that they tend to take a simplistic view of ethics and morality and human interaction where there's good versus evil and good wins. And I'm like, no, evil wins sometimes. Sometimes evil wins.
When asked about artists who hold up the social mirror, here's what he had to say.
I think a movie like No Country for Old Men, it was a successful box office movie. It won the Oscar. And it does a thing in terms of human relationships and ideas of evil and goodness that's much more nuanced and complex and hard to put your finger on in terms of who's good and who's bad and what happens to bad people and what happens to good people. And I think that was a far more artful examination of those themes. Mm-hmm. But it also held up a mirror. I think you can hold up a mirror, but you don't have to slap us in the face while you do it. Right. And I feel like that's what Spielberg does. He holds up a mirror, and then he kicks us in our gut, and I feel like it's not... And I also think, as much as it holds up... his movies hold up a mirror, so do the Saw movies, Saw 4, 5, and 6, or whatever. So do Porky's and Superbad, and they hold up a mirror. And I'm thinking, well, I want to... When I read literature or poetry or look at art or watch a film, I want something that compels me or moves me or interests me, challenges me intellectually, that is something greater than the most dumbed down, lowest common denominator condition in our society. If I want to just see how people are, I can go to the shopping mall or go to the supermarket. And I'm not critical. I mean, I go to the supermarket, I go to the shopping mall, I go see blockbuster movies. I'm not saying that's a bad way to be, but I'm saying I'm also expecting more from a filmmaker who has the reputation of someone like Spielberg, because you look at the guy, Jerry Bruckheimer type of person, right? CSI producer, makes these explosion movies. Those are fine shows and movies. Why not? But he's not held up as this master filmmaker of great intellect. Yeah. He's a guy who has stupid car crashes. All right, fine. Those are fun. But if I'm gonna parallel Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg, well, then we have a problem. Right. I say Bruckheimer and Spielberg, no problem. Mm-hmm. Stanley Kubrick and Akira Kurosawa and Bergman and Spielberg? Come on, he made a shark movie.
Given that Michael's sense of humor is such a large component of his everyday lectures, we asked where he gets his inspiration from.
I don't know. I don't really know. My family's pretty funny. The part of the family that I still talk to, and the rest of them, I guess they seeded enough bitterness and hate in my heart to make me see the absurdity in life or something. But I don't know. I think I also just have always been a real fan of, comedy and humor and wisecracking, and I'm a big talker, and I like to, I sort of feel like. I like to make jokes, and about 90% of them fall flat, and they're not funny, but 10% of them, I always think of like baseball, like I'll pop out a lot. Yeah. But every once in a while, I get to third base. Hey, all right, you know what I mean? And I don't feel, I don't feel a lot of I probably need more of a filter than I've got. You know what I mean? I don't have a lot of self-censorship around making jokes and making observations that are, I'll just go for a joke. It's kind of fun, But I don't really know where it came from. I was raised in Texas, and I'm like me. So you have to have a sense of humor or just, jump off a bridge, as far as I'm concerned. Texas is a pretty dark place.
Surprisingly, we discovered that Michael was once ordained as a Buddhist monk. So we asked him, how did you get from there to here?
When I was a lot younger. I was like 18, 19. I started studying. I was very interested in religion, but not so much in the religious tradition I was raised in, which is Catholicism. But it wasn't a very strong form of Catholicism. It was a kind of, what I mean by that is it wasn't a very dogmatic form of Catholicism. So I was very interested in Buddhism, and I had there are opportunities to I was the composers and authors I liked also mentioned Buddhism. John Cage and J.D. Salinger, and Buddhism would come up. I'm like, oh, well, what's this? Buddhism? Let me look that up. And it was one of those things that I got very involved in when I was in college, when I was 19, 20, and I was very interested in social activism and working to as a service context. And in the religious order that I ended up being ordained in, it was a Vietnamese Zen religious order. The founder of the religious order was very much engaged, a socially engaged practice. It was a very much a sort of I was going to say marriage, but a union between a religious practice and also a socially engaged practice of particularly working with people in poverty, or people working with prisoners, working with Vietnam veterans at that time. In the early 90s, thinking about doing relaxation workshops and other kinds of writer workshops for Vietnam veterans. And it was very important to me to marry those things. And so when I was ordained in a religious order and stayed in practice, and I ended up moving to California, and that's why I moved to California, was I worked in Berkeley for that organization, the Community of Mindful